Aaron Glenn's New York Jets coaching staff is finally coming together, and a lot of fans seem to be excited. We'll break down the staff thus far, all coming up here on a Saturday afternoon, edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by the great Gunny Gumby of New York Jets Situation Report.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Samini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. First episode of the month, February 1st, 2025, and a lot to get into. Aaron Glenn's New York Jets coaching staff, well, it's finally coming together after a lengthy search, ultimately yielding Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. It seems as if the coaching staff is finally coming together. Eric Washington, Aaron Curry, Steve Heiden, Tanner Engstrand, and a lot more names to get into. But before we do so, don't forget about our February membership raffle. This past month was incredible from a membership standpoint. You guys gifted over 400 memberships. We gave away 2 Nick Mangold signed jerseys. We gave away Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet, a Wayne Corbett signed football, a free item from the merch store, and a channel emoji. Now, this month's prizes included Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, and a Bill Parcells signed photo, free item from the merch store, and a channel emoji. The more memberships you guys gift, the more prizes we are able to unlock. Jeffrey R. already has 60 memberships in this month already, and Jimmy Jets with 10. So every membership you gift, or every time one of you becomes a member, it gives you a raffle ticket. Austrian Jet fan starts things off today. He became a member, our number one Austrian Jet fan in the house. I will add you to the ticker down below. When he comes in, he says, like, subscribe, share, free. Please, guys, do so. Like, share, and subscribe completely free. Helps us grow significantly. We really appreciate all your support here on the show. But let's bring in our guest, fellow Jets content creator, Gunny Gumby of New York Jets Situation Report, joins us here on the show. Gunny, what's going on, my man?
Connor, what's good, bro? What's good, man? I'm doing well, man.
Nice.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure chopping it up with you, man, and talking Jets football.
Of course, Gunny, I've been on your show a few times this past season, but
Yep.
last time I had you on, it was following the Panthers game in the preseason. We were all on a high. Oh, this team, Brandon Codrington is the next Devin Hester. This team's going to the Super Bowl, but
Oh man,
5-12 end of the season. We're looking for a new head coach, new GM. They found him in Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. Gunny, I guess we'll start has been the biggest news this far, the most attractive hire, and that's the Jets going with Tanner Engstrand as their offensive coordinator. Really ascended up the Lions coaching staff. He came in when Matt Patricia was their head coach. Ultimately, Dan Campbell retained him, which I think is really important. I think started as a positional coach and worked his way all the way up to passing game coordinator. So really liked in that building. Has had 2 different stints with the Harbaugh family, 8 years of play calling experience, 1 with the DC Defenders of the XFL, 7 with San Diego. Has never been an offensive coordinator on the NFL. Initial thoughts here, Gunny, on the hire, and you want to see anyone else added, particularly on the offensive coaching staff, to potentially help out a first-time NFL offensive coordinator in Tanner Engstrand?
Yeah, I think you said it beautifully, man. There's a like about the hiring of Tanner Engstrand. I think he was one of those guys as the vision started to narrow a little bit as to what the Jets were going to do with the offensive coordinator position, a position, mind you, that we all believe to be the most important one of Aaron Glenn's career thus far as Jets head coach. Getting the OC was going to be intricate. It had to be done right. You had to bring in the right guy. And I think they did that, right? So I know a lot of us wanted Nick Haley. There were some individuals who wanted, Joe, like those guys weren't coming. Joe Brady wasn't coming. You know what I'm saying? Ben Johnson didn't want to come here as the head coach. Like a lot of those guys didn't want to be here, but Nick Haley was one of the guys we heard a lot about potentially being the dude. He decided that, after talking to his boy Mike LaFleur, he didn't want to come here and be the Jets OC after what happened to LaFleur, and that's perfectly fine.
Agreed.
I think Aaron Glenn's message was he wants guys who wants to be here. Given this opportunity to a guy like Tanner, I think goes a long way in just talking about what it means to Tanner Engstrand, right? Because again, he could have followed Ben Johnson to Chicago and rode the coattails of potentially Ben Johnson running that offense. He could have stayed in Detroit where he was comfortable. I know they brought in Morton over there to be the new OC. And a lot of people look at that and they're thinking to themselves like, man, why did Ben Johnson not get him, or why did freaking Dan Campbell not get him?
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. Like they've spoke very highly of Tanner Engstrand. They think highly of him. They loved him. Ben Johnson, I would think behind closed doors, he made Tanner aware that he was going to still be calling the plays as the head coach. And if you want to be an OC and kind of make your own freaking future or your own path, you need to call plays. You just need to at the NFL level. And he knew he wasn't going to get that opportunity with the Chicago Bears if he followed Ben Johnson. And you bring in Morton purely because I don't know how much Dan Campbell wants to go with an all rookie staff, right? If you look at that coaching staff, they got gutted. They got gutted this offseason in terms of them being like the powers that be. They've been great, right? You've seen the rise of the Detroit Lions. Everyone's trying to get some of that magic into their building. So their coaching staff has been stripped of talent. And that's a good thing, a good problem to have, because that means you're doing a great job. So I don't think he wanted to go rookie DC, rookie OC, and start from scratch, right? So I think bringing in Morton to have him take over the offensive coordinator position made a lot of sense. And it just meant that Tanner had to go ahead and make his own path. And he chose to become the Jets coordinator. I love it. I think we should have a lot to be excited about. You said it yourself. This is a guy who has 8 years of play calling experience. Granted, it hasn't been at the NFL level, but he understands situational football. He's done it in the college collegiate level and the professional level for the XFL. I'm pumped about this. And again, like you said before, that Harbaugh connection, having been, followed him around in 2 different locations, Harbaugh thought so highly of him to bring him back as well to Michigan. I think that speaks volumes. So we should be excited. Like when I was talking about Nick Haley, it was Nick Haley was like the 1A, and this was potentially the 1B, if you really want to call it a B. But an actual play calling experience, believe it or not, hey, Tanner has more of that. So you're bringing in a guy coming from a prolific offense who was a top offense in the NFL last year. He's been a part of that Detroit Lions freaking build up to what they are today. A lot to love about the upside of bringing in Tanner. I'm pumped. Now, to answer your question about a senior offensive personnel, I'm hearing a lot of rumors about Todd Haley, and I think that makes a lot of sense, right, to kind of bring him into the building. Again, this is a very, very young staff. A lot of guys who played ball at the NFL, at the collegiate level. They're getting their opportunity now. Again, they've coached in positional roles throughout their time in the NFL. But other than Steve Wilkes, who's the only senior guy in the building right now who's seen the NFL.
And Eric Washington, I'll add that, the defensive line coach. Yes.
Touche. And I think Kirby as well as the linebackers coach who's done it as well.
Yes.
But the rest of these guys are all in new roles. They're all coming into new roles, right? The offensive identity of the Jets is going to be so important. We've got stuck with worst offensive production of football over the last several years. The Jets have not arrived into the 21st century in terms of what offensive football looks like. I would love to bring in a senior assistant to oversee the offense as well, just to assist, Aaron Glenn in that first year. Todd Haley makes a lot of sense. We've been hearing that name quite a bit. I'd love to see him in the building.
Gunny, a lot to unpack there. I guess where I'll start is I love the name of Todd Haley. He's someone who's been a head coach before, multiple stints as a coordinator in this league. He's been a coach since the 90s. He's a hard ass when it comes to being a head coach. He's going to be hard on these guys. He's going to hold player accountable. I would love him as a potential guy to kind of help out the first-time NFL offensive coordinator in Tanner Engstrand. Gunny, Tanner's a name I mentioned in November, actually. I was one of the first people to ever mention Tanner Engstrand, and it's really interesting to see now that he gets a coordinator job. I don't mind it at all. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll be sure to get to those. I'm going to pull up this question here from Bobby. Bobby says, you see the Josina tweet, maybe Peterson. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see anything from Josina Anderson, but Doug Peterson is a name I mentioned yesterday as a potential name to look out for. No one mentioned him whatsoever. I said look out for him. Gunny, I would love Doug Peterson, someone who's a Super Bowl winning head coach in a role like a pass game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and assistant head coach. I think it's unlikely. I think he would most likely sit out a season like he did once he was fired in Philly, waited a cycle before going to Jacksonville. I could see him doing something like that, but if he's open to that role, I think you have to do everything you can to get a Super Bowl winning head coach and Peterson in the building here.
No, yeah, 1,000%. I think Doug Peterson would be an incredible addition to this room. Talk about a pedigree of what winning looks like, how it looks right. And again, an offensive, minded guy who understands offensive football at the NFL level. He's operated different offenses with different quarterbacks. He's got that experience. And again, a plethora of which would be a huge benefit to a rookie freaking offensive coordinator.
Correct.
Trying to figure out what our offensive identity is going to be. I love it, but I'm with you, man. I don't know if it's really feasible just because you're talking about a guy who's definitely a head coach candidate in the NFL. Take the year off, you come back next year, and then you'll probably be one of the top candidates in that rotation. But again, if he's bored and he can do something like Saleh did when he decided to go to the Green Bay Packers and help them defensively, and that defense seemed to kind of like figure things out real quickly once he got over there, I wouldn't be opposed to it. There's nothing to be opposed to. Like if he wants to just come on and hang around, even come on and hang out with these guys and just kind of share some of your ideology with us. I do believe it's going to be important to bring in an offensive-minded senior personnel to assist with that side of the ball because, look, we're not doing a full rebuild here, guys. We're just not. And I know a lot of people look at this team and they look at the record and they think like, oh, man, we've got talent on this team. 7 games last year, the New York Jets lost by 1 possession, 3 of which I'm going to put the blame on our kicker, several of which that we had the freaking lead going into the fourth quarter and our defense collapsed. We never had competent coaching to give this Jets organization an opportunity or a chance in these games. We've got talent. We do. I think competent coaching is going to unlock a lot of that talent. And I think we're not far away from being I'm not saying Super Bowl contenders. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon again. We played ourselves last year talking about it. But this team has the talent to go ahead and make a wild card. You know what I'm saying? The Buffalo Bills are obviously where this division goes through. I get that. I accept it. But this team has enough on the roster to be a wild card contender. You know what I'm saying? At least break this ridiculous, playoff drought. It's just ugly. It's just ugly at this point. So, yeah, bringing in a senior-minded offensive assistant to just kind of oversee the offensive side of things makes a lot of sense. This isn't a complete rebuild. We've got some tweaks to make specifically from the top down. But you bring in that senior assistant like a Doug Peterson or a Todd Haley, I think it gives you that much more confidence in what this offense can potentially become. And I think it does wonders to potentially keeping, our franchise guy and Garrett Wilson in the building because all these rumors you're hearing about the potential of him requesting a trade, I'm sick and tired of hearing it. I don't want him going anywhere. I know we just kept Sean Jefferson, so that goes a long way in I think keeping Garrett in the building. But you show him that, listen, man, we're going to get this offense right, and these are the moves that we're making, and it's going to be featured through you. I think that would go a long way as well in keeping Garrett Wilson in the building.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate your support. 41 of you guys in the building here on YouTube. Only 20 likes, so please hit the like button completely free. Make sure you are subscribed. Subscribe to Gunny on YouTube at NYJets_SitRep, one of the best Jets content creators you will find. If you have any questions, throw them into the chat. And don't forget about our membership raffle leaderboard down below. First day of the month, Joe Klecko signed jersey. Mark Gastineau signed jersey. Bill Parcells signed photo. Free item from the merch store. Channel emoji among the prizes we are giving away as of now. The more memberships you gift, the more exclusive prizes we're able to unlock here. So appreciate all your support. As always, Gunny, you spoke a lot about experience. Probably the most experienced name Aaron Glenn has gone ahead and given a job thus far is Steve Wilks, their new defensive coordinator. A lot to like about it from him. Multiple tenures. He was interim head coach in this league before. He was a head coach with the Cardinals for one season. I know his 1 year as a head coach with the Cardinals wasn't very impressive, 3-13. That situation reminded me a lot of Gerard Mayo, just given the roster that he had was pretty much skin and bones. And he did a nice job as the interim head coach with the Panthers going 6-6. The defensive coordinator with the 49ers in 2023, known for his aggressive blitz-like scheme. I think there's a lot to like in a hire going ahead and giving Wilks the defensive coordinator job. What are your thoughts on Wilks here?
Yeah, I think it was a home run hire. A lot of people seem to be lukewarm about Steve Wilks, and I just don't understand it. This is a guy that has averaged throughout his career as a defensive coordinator a top 10 defense. So I've heard some individuals talk about him. It's ceiling is low. I don't know if a top 10 defense is a low ceiling. Low ceiling, high floor. A top 10 defense in the NFL is a very, very good defense.
Above average.
Averages that. Oh, that's above average. And he averages that as a defensive coordinator in the league. So I'm pumped about the Steve Wilks hire. I think more so than some content creators, at least, and some fans. But Steve Wilks, for me, allows Aaron Glenn to not have to really babysit the defensive side of the football. I think you bring in a guy like that because you share very, very similar philosophies on what you want your defense to look like. Again, both of those guys believe in the zone and in the blitzing with, touches of man. I think that in terms of Aaron Glenn and him being on the same page, I think you can feel more comfortable knowing that Steve Wilks is going to go ahead and do right by implementing Aaron Glenn's vision for the defense since they're so much aligned. But again, you're talking about a very talented defensive side of the football. Listen, Will McDonald had a coming out party this year. We know he's a dog in terms of as an edge rusher. We know Jermaine Johnson is a dog as an edge rusher. Quinnen is still on this roster. He had a down year. I get it. I've heard people talk about like move on from him,
He's in the
et
Pro
cetera.
Bowl.
He's in the Pro Bowl right now. So
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner down year, but can he go ahead and bounce back? I think so too. We have talent on the defensive side of the football.
No doubt.
I don't understand the lukewarm feeling about like, yeah, he's a competent, defensive court. Competent? I think we're selling Steve Wilkes short a little bit in regards to what he brings to the table, but I'm pumped about that hire. And I think it allows Aaron Glenn to be comfortable with his defense being what he wants it to be, while he can go ahead and put more of his energy into special teams and, of course, into the offense.
I agree 1,000%. I thought a defensive coordinator was a very important hire, given the fact that Aaron Glenn, I think overall, is more. You hire Aaron Glenn for the fact that he is a CEO, leader of men type head coach. You don't hire him because he's a defensive wizard. He's a defensive genius. You hire him because he's that CEO, leader of men type who's going to hold people accountable. That's who Aaron Glenn is. And once it turned out to be official that he's not going to call plays, I said, boom. I want someone who has experience in here. Another name I would have liked was Kelvin Shepard. Detroit's linebackers coach. He got the promotion there in Detroit, staying there. But I think Wilkes is pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to this job, given his proven track record and the experience he has on the defensive side of the ball. Another name who has a lot of experience, who Aaron Glenn brought in to be the next defensive line coach after Aaron Whitecutt was snatched by Brian Schottenheimer going down to Dallas, is Eric Washington. He has experience. He was the Bears defensive coordinator this past season. He's been a positional coach for quite some time. Now he's the defensive line coach. Gunny, initial thoughts here on bringing an experienced guy like Eric Washington in the building.
Again, I think it's another home run hiring from Aaron Glenn. You're making sure that your defense is going to need not for leadership, right? And direction. We know what Washington brings to the table. He's a proven defensive line coach. Again, a guy that was promoted to defensive coordinator in this league. So again, another boatload of experience on the defensive side of the football. The Jets' bread and butter has been defense over the last several years. I don't think you want to just get away from that because you want to go ahead and bring in a 21st century type of offense. You want to become more excited and that dynamic when it comes to the offense. The defense has been our bread and butter. Like, that's what got us to the last back-to-back AFC championship games. When you think of the New York Jets, you really think of defense. Now, I would love for you to go ahead and incorporate complementary football, where you think of defense, special teams, and, of course, offense. But you're bringing in these kind of components, these pieces, these guys who are proven in the league to go ahead and continue to establish and add on to what has been a pretty good defense in the last several years. So, again, the talent on the defense side of the football is real. Like, that's not fake. We didn't make that stuff up. What we saw the last couple of years wasn't just a figment of our imagination. Bringing in these kind of adults into the building to lead those guys, we shouldn't see a fall off on the defense. We should see some improvements specifically in stopping the run. I think Washington and Wilkes very prioritized stopping the run. They've done an extremely good job in making sure their defenses have been a part of being able to stop the run. So, again, I love the hiring. It's one of those things where you're really not thinking about it until the name is mentioned and you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But another home run hire by Aaron Glenn, which is one reason why I think I favored Aaron Glenn amongst the other individual defensive-minded coaches, because of his relationships throughout the league, having the seal of approval from a Bill Parcells and a Sean Payton goes a long way. And you're seeing him pull from all these different sources throughout the league. And it's not just about like guys he's worked with, right? I think a lot of people thought like he was going to go ahead and make it like, hey, and then Aaron Glenn, we're all friends. Come on and hang out with me with the Jets. No, he's reaching out throughout the NFL and bringing legitimate talent into the building because he wants what's best for the Jets. That's just what's going to make Aaron Glenn's life comfortable. He wants what's best for the Jets. So I love that. This is another good hiring for the Jets defense. And if you're on that defensive line, man, you got to be excited. I know Jermaine Johnson has exhibited a lot of excitement seeing this defensive coaching staff come together to include Aaron Glenn. So Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen, Sauce, freaking Will McDonald, those are the core components. You know what I'm saying? We got also Quincy as well. Yeah, I think he's again all-pro linebacker just a year ago.
On the offensive side of the ball.
Yep, exactly. So I just feel like there's a lot to be excited about, man. The ceiling is high. I think the ceiling is high for this coaching staff, and I mean at this point, what I don't want to say how bad can it be, right? Because we've seen pretty bad before.
We've seen bad football.
I don't want to go ahead and even test that or put that out there. But I'm pretty excited, man, about the decisions they've made in terms of the defense specifically, and of course the upside of the offense now.
Gunny, one more hire I wanted to get into before we get into the chat. 54 of you in the building. Please smash the like. Please subscribe to the channel. All of you watching here on YouTube. And that's Steve Heiden, who the Jets named their new offensive line coach. The one thing I will say here that's potentially a little troublesome is he's only had 1 year of being an offensive line coach in this league. It was assistant offensive line coach with the Cardinals for one season. He was a tight end in this league for a couple seasons. He was just last served as the Lions tight end coach. Gunny, I think getting the right offensive line coach in here is really important. Same with getting the run game coordinator in here to open up these gaps for Breece Hall, maximize the potential in trench play, because, well, it might not be the same old type of football if you're just going to run it down their throats, ground and pound football. Still, I want Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall was significantly underutilized last season, the way they misused him, the way they used the offensive line. So I think getting a legit offensive line coach and a legit run game coordinator is really important. It concerns me a little bit from his experience level here, Gunny. What about you?
1,000%. I do have my question marks, and I've done some research trying to find some way to look at this hiring as just nothing but a positive. But in all actuality, the only positive you can find is that he's coming from that offense of the Detroit Lions, and he was a component in regards to making sure offensive line alignments was on point to match up with the tight end. The offensive line in Detroit's been really, really good. Really, really good the last couple of years. It's a top 5 unit. I think we have the pieces on our offensive line, minus that right tackle position, to go ahead and have a top 5 unit in the NFL. We love what we saw from Olu Fashanu. He looked really, really good. And that was really something that I think a lot of us were going to be excited about, because the whole freaking Brock Bowers and Olu thing. I digress. I was really excited about Olu. He proved he can go ahead and play in this league. You love what you saw in John Simpson. Finally, a freaking, offensive line acquisition that we bring in, and they not only played to their potential, but they superseded it. Titman, of course, is a stud, and AVT played for us this year. When he's in there, we know what he can do. Right tackle Morgan Moses is banged up. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back on a 1 year, 2 year deal, but also finding his replacement behind him too. But I think this offensive line can be really good. Now, can Steve Heiden, I guess, get that out of these guys? I don't know. I feel like, again, tight ends to offensive, is the transition going to be seamless? Like, there's a lot of question marks when it comes to him, but I feel like Tanner Engstrand was people think like Tanner didn't have a say in a lot of this stuff. I feel like they wouldn't have brought in, this guy to be the O-line coach if they talked to Tanner and what would you think about him potentially being your O-line coach? I feel like he might have given the green light on some of the this hire. So if he believes he can find a way to utilize them, again, I guess the time will tell. But this is one of those hirings where I'm like, man, I'm hoping the ceiling is something I just can't see, and it's a high one. But I feel the floor might be low as well, right? No experience as an O-line coach. He's been the tight ends coach for them, but like the last year, 2 years only. So he's been there minimally as well. He's a young guy as well. This one for me was I was like, all right, I really wish we had spent more time on looking at offensive line coaches.
They fired Keith Carter. They hired Heiden the same day, like hours later.
Exact day. Exactly. I was like, I feel like y'all didn't really put any effort into this one, and that's kind of concerning, because offensive line play in the NFL is very, very important. Like it's very, very important to the impact of your offense. And this was like, yep, bye, Keith, and then come on in. You're the guy. So I don't know how I feel about this one. This is one of the question marks I have in terms of the hiring, especially how quickly they did it when they didn't actually do, in my opinion, any due diligence.
All right, let's get into your questions. If you have any questions for Gunny and I, throw them in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as possible. Only a few more minutes left with Gunny here. I'll stay on, answer the rest of your questions. Take your calls if you want to call into the show. Just click the pin comment in the chat. Daniel Berry Sports highlights in with his 2-month member super chat. Imagine the Jets get Darnold back. Unfortunately, I don't think that's happening. I don't think the Jets want Darnold. I don't think Darnold wants the Jets. I think he goes back to Minnesota on either like an extension or a franchise tag. Bottom line, he's not coming back to the Jets. Austrian Jet fan in the house with 5 gifted memberships. Unfortunately, we don't have any names to read because we broke YouTube and we maxed out all of our memberships, but these memberships will be distributed in a few days once some expires. YouTube's annoying, I get it, but Austrian Jet fan, you're the GOAT. Appreciate it. Updated the ticker down below for Day's show. Appreciate you as always. Mike D's Nuts coming in with his 4-month member super chat. Keep up the great work. Mike D's Nuts, good to see you in the chat. Appreciate you as always. John Willow comes in and says, what do we think about Mac Jones as a bridge quarterback? Gunny, and Mac Jones is probably bottom of the barrel for me. I would take Josh Dobbs. I would take Sam Ellinger. I would take a lot of people
Anyone, yeah,
before I take Mac Jones as this team's bridge quarterback if they're going to move on from Rodgers.
So Mac Jones to me, I think, was one of those guys who was elevated by individuals around him. He never to me was a quarterback that was going to go ahead and really achieve greatness at the NFL level.
Yeah.
I didn't like him in the draft. I didn't like him I laughed when the Patriots picked him up, and I really appreciated them doing that. And of course, I think he's dirty as well. I don't like his mentality. I don't like his play. Yeah. Nothing about Mac Jones to me is something that's even remotely appealing. Now that's gonna be a pass for me, man. I'm with Connor. I would go almost anyone else that's available next year that wants to come into this building before I go Mac Jones. I'm not a fan of that kid whatsoever.
Not at all. Mac Jones, a hard pass for me. Mike D's nuts, you're an absolute goat. Appreciate you coming in with 5 gifted memberships. Like I said, unfortunately, no names to read, but updated the ticker down below. Mike, you're the goat. Appreciate you as always. Hennessy Heisman in the building says, will we be running a 2025 NFL offense now? Well, what Tanner Engstrand's offense looks like, to kind of put it lightly, he has some modern day flares. I think an interesting name to look out for is Malachi Corley next season. It's going to be interesting to see the way they utilized him because, Gunny, when you look at the Lions offense last year, the way they kind of used Jameson Williams as that gadget player on those RPO screens, I could see Malachi Corley kind of having a similar role as to what Jameson Williams' role looked like with the Lions last season. Thoughts here?
Yeah, no, 100%. Malachi Corley was significantly underutilized, and this is why I think it's exciting to actually have adults in the building, right? The New York Jets, to me, have always struggled to go ahead and tailor their offense specifically around their weapons, around their personnel. It was this is what we're going to do. You can do it or you can't. That doesn't mean you're a good coach to me. That just means you're not adaptable. You don't know how to go ahead and get your players involved. Malachi Corley was criminally underutilized last year. I still am a fan of him coming out of college. I was ecstatic about the pick when we drafted him. I still believe he's got the ability to make an impact at the NFL level, and I think we're going to see it next year. And I think the comparison you just made there is perfect. I think he's going to be that gadget guy that gets the ball into his hands. The guy was named the Yak King for a reason. Get the ball in his hands and let him go get those yards.
For sure. Number 1 Austrian Jet fan in the building. Wonder who's going to be the RB coach. Gunny, an interesting name to look out for here is Deuce Staley, the running backs coach with the Cleveland Browns. He played in the league, obviously, for a little while. Overlapped with Glenn in Detroit for 2 seasons. He's been an assistant head coach before in Detroit. Maybe you can give him a bit of promotion, bring him in here as the running backs coach and assistant head coach here. Other than that, I don't know of too many other names that are quite intriguing for that position, for that coaching job.
It's funny you bring up Deuce Staley because my brother-in-law and I were having a discussion about that. He's a Steelers fan. And that was the name that we were discussing.
Oh, wow.
He was kind of hoping that since the contract has expired, that they would pick him up. He's not really happy with the running back room right now with the Steelers. But I was just like, I'm hoping the Jets pick him up. And I brought the same thing up, that there's a connection there with him and Aaron Glenn. And sticking with the theme of just hiring, previous players to come into this coaching realm, which, again, I really believe is criminally undervalued in terms of what that means to players, right? Because you're literally coming into a building where, hey, I've been here, I've done this. So when I say something, I'm telling you right now, it's coming from a place of understanding that holds value. Like it's easier to relate to these guys and for players to relate to their coaches when they know, like, man, you've been in my shoes before, you've been in these seats before, and I think that goes a long way. So sticking to the theme of bringing in a lot of past players, I think it makes a lot of sense. And again, the connection is there. And I think that would do wonders for a guy like freaking Brees and Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis to have him be the one that come in there. Young running back room, very young, very talented running back room. Deuce Staley could impose a lot of wisdom on these guys that can go ahead and take their games to the next level. So I'd love to see it. And after that name, I haven't really looked at anyone else because I know that contract expired. And after we brought in the inside linebacker coach from the Steelers is when I started Aaron Curry, yeah. So I started looking at running back coaches in the AFC North, and he popped up. So I would love it, man. We haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything about them discussing running back coaches, but no. Austrian Jets fan, if they brought in Deuce Staley, that would be a home run addition to this coaching staff.
For sure. Caden Jets page in the house, channel member, moderator here on the show. Bring back Rodgers, draft Ted McMillan at 7. Gunny, have you gotten into the draft evaluation process yet? I've been watching some tape. Ted McMillan's my number 1 guy for the Jets right now. Great hands, some of the best body control you will ever see in a receiver. 6'5", 212, really like his height, really like his weight. Ted McMillan's there at 7. I think you run up to the podium here, Gunny.
Yeah, that big body guy that can go ahead and get those contested catches. Again, this guy doesn't miss anything. He doesn't drop anything. I have started looking at the wide receivers. Of course, Tez that I had mentioned last time. I this is why I confused Tet with Tez, but
Yeah,
Tez for
Tez
me,
Johnson. Yeah.
Tez Johnson, yeah, that's the guy that I'm looking at. Like maybe in the third, you go for him, but he's making a name for him right now in the Senior Bowl, so he might not be there. He might go in the second round. The only thing I'm worried about is I don't want that guy going to just the Buffalo Bills or the
No.
Dolphins. This dude's separation is just disgusting. But not Ted at 7 makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense as well. You bring the big bodied guy there, compliment to freaking Garrett Wilson, and then what you just said makes a lot of sense to me because you've got two guys who are great route runners, right? Ted's a great route runner. Garrett Wilson's a great route runner. I know Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers is still on the board, right? But having 3 stud wide receivers in the room is not a bad thing. More weapons for Aaron Rodgers to utilize. And that's even if Aaron Rodgers is not the guy and Devontae Adams stays or goes, you bring in Ted. After Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, our Malachi Corley, we're hoping, you know what I'm saying, can be that guy. But there's really not much to be excited about in our wide receiver room after that. Jordy Nelson will definitely not be back next year. They're going to definitely let him go. Yeah, man, Ted makes a lot of sense to me. I agree. But I'm also on team trade back if it was feasible, which I doubt is going to happen because there's really nothing to trade up for. Yeah. But in this situation, like, yeah, Ted there at 7 makes sense. But if you miss out on Ted and you go defensive line or you go offensive line or maybe you go tight end, man, I'm telling you, man, Tez Johnson, man, if he's available for you in the second or third, gosh, man, it'd be exciting to have that guy in as our slot receiver for the next several years.
For sure, Gunny. I know we said about 25 to 30 minutes. I know we're about 2 minutes over. You got to run? How much? Okay, perfect.
No, we're good.
Awesome. A few more questions left here. Paulie Yo in the building says, why is Wilkes a good pick for defensive coordinator? Already wasn't a good fit in San Francisco and was at the league last year. Why is that good? Paulie Yo, the reason he actually got fired in San Francisco is because of basically kind of not necessarily a power struggle between him and Shanahan, but Shanahan didn't like how aggressive he was when it came to blitzing. And I love that aggressiveness. He's known for holding players accountable. Over 30 years of coaching experience. Has been a defensive coordinator multiple times in his career. Has been a head coach twice. What is there not to like about Steve Wilkes, I think, is the better question here, Gunny.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, again, and Paul, you make sense, right? Like in terms of the San Francisco situation, that's a winning organization. Why would they cut ties with them? But it boils down to pretty much a difference in philosophies. Steve Wilkes, and again, the crazy part is they fired a guy that gave them a top 5 defense. Like it wasn't like he exactly. Was like it was a top 5 defense. Actually, they were borderline top 1 in total defense. I think the top 2 overall defense, but top 5 across the board in every statistic. And they fired that guy. Even in the playoffs, like it wasn't because of his defense that they lost in the playoffs. But again, I digress. That firing to me made no sense, but to me, Wilkes took the year off. Why not? They were still paying him. He was still getting paid last year. Maybe his thought process was I'll take the year off and maybe have a head coaching opportunity the following season. Obviously that didn't come to fruition and he's back as our DC, but there's a lot to love about him. Like I said before, over his tenure, over his career, he averages out a top 10 defense in the NFL. Yeah. As a defensive coordinator. Like that's really, really good. Really, really good.
For sure. Joe in the house. What do you guys think of Todd Haley as an OC advisor? Gunny, we spoke about him earlier. Big Haley guy, right?
Yep. Would love it. I would love it. I think, again, that would show that you're not looking at this team as in a rebuild state, right? You're still looking at this team being able to compete next year. You bring in a guy like a Todd Haley can accelerate the process of implementing what an NFL caliber playoff caliber offense would look like. And it allows freaking, Engstrand an opportunity to go ahead and learn from somebody who's been there, done that, and has led a plethora of different offenses at the NFL level. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. It only makes your coaching staff better. And it's something that I'm 100% on board of. I know Doug Peterson. I know Connor brought up Doug Peterson. I wouldn't be mad about that either. But again, bringing in a senior-minded or senior offensive official or advisor into the building only goes to prove to the rest of us that they're not rebuilding this year. They're retooling, right? And that's a big difference.
Awesome LA in the building, channel member. I want David Blau as the QB coach / passing game coordinator. Thoughts? I would take him as QB coach if he wanted to take a parallel lateral move, from Washington. Again, he was a player in the league for a few seasons with the Lions. What he's done with Jaden Daniels is great and all, but let's keep in mind they also have 2 quarterback whisperers on that offensive staff, and Brian Johnson and Cliff Kingsbury. Take him as a I don't even know if I'd take him as a quarterback's coach here, Gunny. I want someone who has legit
Legitimate,
experience as
yeah.
a quarterback coach in this league. I mean, David Blau was cut by the Lions a few years ago. He's probably, I think he had 2 or 3 NFL starts. One was on Thanksgiving a few years ago, which was absolutely embarrassing. I don't know if you remember that. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. He started the game for the Lions against the Bears on Thanksgiving. I would take him as a quarterback's coach, maybe assistant quarterback's coach, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the magic we've seen coming out of the offense of the Commanders is on the backs of a Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury has done this numerous times. He's done this with freaking the likes of Kyle Murray out in freaking Arizona, made him the first overall pick, made him a
Patrick
Heisman
Mahomes
guy.
in college.
Patrick Mahomes in college, right? He did it with
Baker Mayfield. Johnny Manziel in college.
Johnny Manziel in college. He's done this consistently. He's made these guys studs. And I think he's now again, I think Jaden Daniels is extremely talented. Like, you can only unlock what's actually there.
For sure.
Jaden Daniels is extremely talented. I think you can't really coach the ice water in his veins. The kid does not get rattled, but you are able to go ahead and get every bit of talent and utilize it and make him the offensive rookie of the year because you're Cliff Kingsbury. So I know Blau is there, but I don't think Blau is the reason why Jaden Daniels is Jaden Daniels. I don't think he has anything to do with it personally. Cliff Kingsbury has been doing this for years, which is why I was really kind of hoping he was in the head coaching conversation, but it is what it is.
He was one of my top guys.
Same here. I was hoping, man, but he wants to stay where he's at, so be it.
Can't blame him. Why would you want to leave Jaden Daniels?
No, I don't blame him.
Yeah, all the success they had overall. I mean, this is just their first season of what has been a rapid turnaround. Already one of our Lions fans in the building, one of our 3 or 2 Lions fans we have here on the show, SW Lion 26 comes in the building. Says, don't forget Mark Burnell for quarterbacks coach / pass game coordinator. Gunny Burnell obviously has a history with the organization, was in the league for a few seasons, started in Jacksonville, backed up Mark Sanchez for a few years. He's someone, again, though, the experience concerns me. He's been a quarterbacks coach, I think 3 or 4 seasons now with Jared Goff. If he wants to take a lateral move and wants to be the quarterback's coach, okay. I don't know about giving him the pass game coordinator title here, though.
I would be on board, and I would be on board because, again, this is a guy who's played quarterback at the NFL level. Jared Goff, let's be honest, you got to admit you've seen a bit of a resurgence of who he is now from what he was when he was with the Rams.
But how much of that is Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell? Like, that's
honestly, we're about to find out. We're about to find out. We're going to see if Ben Johnson is truly the mastermind that we thought he was, or if he had a really good supporting staff. I think Mark Burnell, having played in this league, does hold some value, though. I was on board of maybe making him even an offensive coordinator for us if we had to go down that train to bring him into the building. So I look at him, I look at Josh McCown. A lot of individuals were all about making Josh McCown the head coach. Mark Burnell and Josh McCown have very similar pathways to their current positions right now. And Mark Burnell has been, I would say, more successful at the NFL level than a Josh McCown was. So I would be on board with this, getting him into the building as the QB coach, even if you wanted to add passing game coordinator to it. I think that relationship with Tanner as well would go a long way in terms of continuity. And you're not really having to rebuild, you know what I'm saying, the relationship, because you've worked with each other before. That matters. But again, this follows the pattern of bringing in guys who've played at the NFL level before. Mark Burnell can honestly talk to a quarterback like a quarterback. That would go a long way. So yeah, I would not be opposed to this. It might not be the cup of tea for everybody, but for me, Mark Burnell was somebody I even had on my radar as an OC if it had to come down to it. So I'd be on board.
As an OC, okay, so you're taking a big shot there at Mark Burnell. You're on the Burnell for quarterbacks coach train here. I'm trying to pull up some David Blau stats quickly so I could just make a funny joke here, Gunny, before we wrap up. So here's his career record as a quarterback: 4 years, 3 with the Lions, 1 with the Cardinals. 0-7, 57% completion percentage, 1,435 yards, 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's 29 years old. I'm just trying to envision, Gunny, a David Blau conversation alongside 42-year-old Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers on the sidelines and what that would look like.
Comical. I think that would be a comical conversation, to say the least.
I knew they were bad. I thought it would be like 2 and 3.
That's pretty bad.
2 and 3, maybe 70% completion. Wow. 0-7, 57% completion, 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Oh my God.
That's gross. That's utterly
disgusting.
gross.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass on David Blau for quarterbacks coach. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate all your support. Last chance to get your questions in. Subscribe to Gunny's channel at NYJetsSitRep. Check out our Discord down below. Please join that if you haven't already. Check out our merch store, some Fire NY Flight Jet stock stuff there. So appreciate you as always. 61 of you guys watching on YouTube, only 36 likes. So please hit the like button. Your support means a ton. Like I said, last chance to get your questions in. Super chats, memberships, Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, Bill Parcells signed photo, channel emoji, merch item. Among the prizes we're giving away this month, the more memberships you guys gift, the more exclusive prizes we are able to unlock here on the show. Gunny, appreciate you joining me today. You got any final thoughts? And let everyone know where they can find you on all platforms.
Yeah, listen, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course on YouTube at New York Jets Situation Report. Tuesday nights, we do the hangout. We pretty much chop up, talk Jets football, whatever news is currently happening. We jump on there at the hangout and we go ahead and talk about it. And I'm on Thursday, Thick of It with Green Bean as well. If you want to go ahead and catch me there.
Yes,
and I'm always jumping on other shows when given the opportunity. So Connor, it's been a minute since you and I chopped it up on your channel. So I appreciate you having me on, man. But yeah, I'm excited, man. Look, I know as Jets fans, we all have PTSD from doing this every single offseason where we find a reason to pump ourselves up and like this is going to be the year. I'm not sitting here telling you guys we're winning the Super Bowl this year, but I do believe with grown-ups in the building, this is a team that could have gone ahead and turned 7 of those freaking 1 possession losses into maybe 5 wins. You know, maybe we don't win all, but we win 5. Now we're in the conversation for maybe a wild card spot. The AFC East definitively goes to the Buffalo Bills. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. A guy like Josh Allen being who we have to deal with for the next God knows how long is just our punishment as Jets fans, right? It was Tom Brady, now it's this guy. But I think this team has the talent to potentially be a wild card contender. And that's all you can hope for going into next year. I'm going to hope for it. I know a lot of you guys just don't have it in you anymore to believe, but I'm telling you guys, there's a lot to be excited about here. The Jets have some grown-ups in the building, and that's all you can ask for.
Gunny, you're the man. Can't thank you enough for hopping on. Follow Gunny on all social media platforms. That'll do it for us here on this Saturday, February 1st, 2025. Gunny Gumby, Connor Long, wrapping things up. As always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.